Did you know that sometime this year there will be 8 billion people living on this planet? That makes us the most populous large mammal on Earth today. In fact, there are more people than there are rabbits. Although Australia might disagree with that assessment. I don't think a rabbit's a large mammal anyways. Regardless, my question is this: can the Earth support this many humans? Does anyone even care anymore? It wasn't always 8 billion souls, you know. In the year 1800, not long after the American Revolution, it was estimated there were around 1 billion people. By 1927, it had doubled to 2 billion. It doubled again to 4 billion by 1974. It took hundreds of thousands of years before we first started walking upright to get to 1 billion people. Now we have 8 times that in only 200 years. What's the answer to this growing populace? Well, depends on the question, I suppose. All I know, and I'm no scientist, there has to be a limit at some point, right? And that is where the disagreements start. Believe it or not, many organizations who are usually on opposite sides, like pro-life folks, the Sierra Club, and Greenpeace, are now in agreement that overpopulation is a myth. Yeah, the Sierra Club. Go figure. Maybe I'm living in the past and overpopulation isn't such a big thing anymore. It was a big concern when I was growing up, and it's all we heard about. The Pew Research Center, they're a think tank that studies social issues and demographic trends, say that at the end of this century we will have around 11 billion people. However, they predict the growth rate will flatline, maybe even decrease by then because the fertility rates are falling in lots of places. Until now, Mother Nature kept our numbers in check. She has a toolbox, you know, and one of her tools is virus outbreaks. COVID-19 is a good example. Sorry to all of those conspirators out there, but the coronavirus did not come out of a test tube in China. It probably came out of a food market in China that sold wild animals to eat. That is how we get some of our viruses, from animals. Remember the Spanish flu? The one that killed an estimated 50 million people in 1918? The first case was actually in Fort Riley, Kansas, not Spain. I used to live in Fort Riley. And they think it came from some farm animals the next county over. But this flu traveled around the world, killing millions during World War I. In fact, the flu killed more American soldiers than the war did. So it was the Kansas flu, if you want to be accurate, not the Spanish flu. Spain calls it the French flu, by the way. Always a good idea to blame someone else, you know. They think it came from swine, but a few have speculated it was a bird flu. They just aren't sure. Like COVID-19, it's hard to track. Even though viruses evolve naturally in nature through things like bacteria and algae, many have been passed along to us by all kinds of animals for thousands of years, like HIV, Ebola, and even rabies. They are all zoonotic diseases. The other tool Mother Nature has is the climate, but we've caused most of our recent problems, so we can only blame ourselves. Mother Nature will probably just drop a rock on us anyway at some point to get even. And while you shouldn't mess with Mother Nature, we do. And we have for a long time, which is why people live longer. I'm talking about technology, medical and agriculture advances, things like that. In 1800, the average lifespan in America was 38. Today, it's 76. Back in the day, we died of all kinds of maladies. One troublesome virus back then was smallpox. Smallpox had been around for 3,000 years already and killed millions before they developed a vaccine of sorts from cowpox in the late 1700s. It wasn't totally eradicated until 1980. So we've made a few improvements to live longer. We eat healthier, we grow more food. Lots of things have contributed to a larger world population. But can we sustain these kinds of numbers? China saw a problem with their growth a few years ago and instituted a one-child policy. It didn't go well, so they got rid of it and did a two-child thing. Now it's a three-child thing. You just can't tell people not to have children. Well, I guess in China you can. And at one time after World War II, they told parents to have lots of kids. It got out of control, of course, and their population exploded, so in 1980, they said just one kid from now on. But their birth rate got to be so low that after a few years, they wanted couples to have more kids again because their workforce was shrinking. It's more expensive in China to raise kids now, so couples average less than 2 children per household, just like the Western world. In India, it's 2.2 kids per household, so they're going to pass China soon in population. You know, we probably could handle more people and figure out how to feed everyone, but politics and religion will keep the wars and squabbling going. And you can only turn so many rainforests into farmland, so we shouldn't be giving up any more habitat. So what is going to happen? Do we just keep growing? Do we really need more people? Like I said, the population explosion was a big thing when I was growing up, and it was even covered in our popular culture like television and the movies. There was a Star Trek show that dealt with this overpopulation subject once. I like Star Trek. This one was the original Star Trek show with Captain Kirk. And even though it aired years ago, this show has stuck with me. Star Trek just made some suggestions, really, like contraception, sterilization. Those were pretty radical suggestions back then. The episode was called The Mark of Gideon, and it first aired in January 1969. Star Trek touched on lots of social issues, but it could be a little dramatic at times. The show was about the Starship Enterprise visiting this planet that was experiencing overpopulation. They made their point by squashing all these people together. Turns out this planet's solution was to introduce a new virus. That's right, a new one. They kidnapped Kirk and held him on a fake ship with some woman so she could catch his germs and pass them along to everybody else. Kind of like we did to the people already living here when we showed up 400 years ago with our own germs. It seems the people on this planet were virus-free, so they needed a new illness to be introduced to their population. Their leaders explained that other methods of birth control, like what Kirk suggested, would never be accepted, so this was their only choice. Do away with a few people by letting nature take over. But it just shows that Hollywood doesn't have a solution either. And if Hollywood doesn't have a solution, then we are all doomed. Remember the movie Soylent Green? You know, Soylent Green is people? Yeah, that one. It was all set in the year 2022. Hey, that's like now. But I don't think we've started eating each other just yet. The most recent Hollywood movie to deal with overpopulation was Interstellar, which was made just a few years ago. It was set in the year 2067. But it was more about the environment turning on us and people going wacky and turning against science. Yeah, they rewrote their textbooks to teach kids that some moon landings never happened. I think we do that in a few states here now. Interstellar also dealt with Earth's last chance to find another place to live before we went extinct. But I don't think a wormhole is going to appear anytime soon like it did in the movie. So, if Hollywood is stumped, then is there a solution? Maybe I'm just stuck in the past because it's not an issue anymore. But if we don't slow down like they say we might, then our only option is to move, like to the moon or Mars. Personally, I think China is going to colonize the moon first. Between them and India, they have over 25% of the planet's population, so they're motivated. Well, why should I care? I'm not going to be here forever anyways. Too bad the Starship Enterprise isn't around because I'd hop on it and catch a ride somewhere. I'd be pretty good at cleaning out Jeffrey tubes to pay for my ride. They always seem to be doing that on the Enterprise. They must be dirty. Live long and prosper. That's all I got.
Down in the dungeon is all we know, where the shining light, we never go into the open. As far as you can see it, wasting there a big bright destiny. Don't you feel like breaking free? Open your eyes, embrace what you see now. Don't you feel